What's up, everybody? Welcome back to 8th grade science. Today we are talking about 3 big words that we talked about last year in 7th grade. So if you were with me last year, we covered this. If you weren't, you probably covered it, but we're going to go over it again because it's really important to our next lesson. So today's kind of a setup for our final lesson of the Earth Science unit for the CA. All right, so we really need to get these 3 words down. Our 3 words are weathering, erosion, and deposition. First, let's look at our definition of weathering right here. Weathering is the gradual process of breaking rocks into smaller pieces. What I want you to do is underline smaller. Oops, my pen's not working. One moment. I want you to underline smaller pieces. And what we're going to do is we are going to tell another vocabulary word for smaller pieces, because smaller pieces isn't really scientific. The way you'll see it written, there's my pen working, underline smaller pieces. The way you'll see it written is this. You'll see it written as sediment. The word sediment means small pieces of rock. Weathering creates sediment. All right, there's 2 types of weathering. This first one right up here, it says breaks down rocks by changing the chemical makeup of rocks and minerals, like rust and acid rain. You can come up in this box, you can write chemical. We're probably looking at room for chem. Chemical weathering is the weathering through chemical processes, not physical ones. All right, the next one occurs when rocks are broken apart by physical force, like ice, wedging, abrasion, plants. That's called physical, so you can abbreviate that phys. Physical weathering is when you're actually breaking something. Chemical weathering is when the chemical reactions between 2 things break the rocks down. All right, so weathering is the first step in this process. What I want you to write is always comes first. There's 2 more steps, erosion and deposition. If you don't weather the rock, there's nothing to move, there's nothing to put in a new place. You need weathering before you get anything else. All right, so let's scoot now. Let's check out erosion. Let's read our definition. Erosion is the process of moving weathered material. I want you to underline weathered, and every time we see weathered, we're going to rewrite broken down, because that's all weathering means. Weathering means to break down material, so weathered material has been broken down. Erosion is the process of moving broken down material from one location to the other. I want you to also box in moving, okay, because that's what erosion means. Erosion means moving. All right, so we're going to come in this middle box. We're going to draw ourselves a little bit of picture. Split it in half. And then I want you to draw a little mountain. There's my mountain. And then I want you to draw like 3 or 4 pieces of rock falling off of it, okay? So those pieces of rock have been weathered from the mountain. They've been broken down, and now they need to move. So in the second pane, I want you to redraw your mountain. But then I want you to draw a pile of your 4 pieces of rock next to it. So what we just drew is that weathered material was eroded. It was broken down on top of the mountain, and then it eroded or moved to the bottom of the mountain, okay? Come in this far right box, I want you to write always follows weathering. These 3 things happen in a row, okay? The first thing that happens is always weathering, the breaking down. The second thing that happens is always erosion, the movement to a new location, okay? Now we're going to get to our third and final term. It's called deposition. Deposition is the process of laying down eroded material. Y'all know we need to change eroded. Circle it. And we're going to change it to moved. Eroded means moved. The process of laying down moved material in a new location. So you've done all this work. You've broken down the material. You've moved it to a new location. And now we need to figure out what does it do when it gets there, okay? Split your box. And then I'm going to draw a river flowing through our picture. Here's a river. And then here's the ocean. Okay? And a lot of times at the ocean where it meets the river, it's called the delta. This material builds up. Okay? So what I want you to have drawn is a river and an ocean and then a big pile of sediment right there. And then we are going to write in the other box, new location. Deposition means you lay down the sediment somewhere new, okay? So our final step over here in the far box, we said weathering always comes first, erosion always follows weathering, while deposition always follows erosion. Always follows erosion. Okay. To review what we just talked about, weathering is breaking down rocks into sediment, erosion is moving that sediment to a new location, and deposition is taking that stuff that's been moved and putting it in a new location. Okay, those are our three key terms. Now we just need to talk about a few examples, all right? You'll notice this box says weathering and erosion increases when. This is really important. I want you to write plant life decreases. So we need to think about why that is, okay? So we're going to draw ourselves another picture. I want you to come over to the left side, and I want you to draw the ground, just kind of like some ground there, and then a tree. And I'll use color. Obviously, you can't. Do your best here, all right? Draw yourselves a tree. And then what is really important is that you draw these going into the ground. I'm guessing you can guess what these are. These are roots, okay? These roots are responsible for keeping the ground held together. So if plants get destroyed, there's less roots to hold stuff in place. If there's less stuff held in place, it's going to get weathered, it's going to get eroded, it's going to get deposited. All right? Plant life decreases, meaning erosion increases. There's less stuff to hold it down. All right, finally, let's talk about what weathering, erosion, and deposition create. So what can this make? We're going to list a couple examples, all right? Our first example that we're going to list is river delta. Second thing we're going to list is beach. And the third and final thing that we are going to list. So before I actually do that, the river delta is what we drew up here, where sediment gets laid down in a new location. That's a river delta. The beach, of course, is just sand getting laid down all over. That's another thing that commonly gets created. And I actually want you to write breaks down mountains. We're going to draw that last. That's our final thing we're going to do. Weathering, erosion, and deposition create beaches. They create river deltas because all this sediment gets deposited in a new location. But that usually comes from things like mountains. And we're going to draw how a mountain can get weathered. All right, so our final thing here before I set you free on guided practice. Draw a mountain. I've already drawn one like this. It's more like a hill. There's our mountain. There's our mountain before weathering. All right? And of course, we need to take that word weathering, and y'all know what we need to change it into. Weathering means breaking down. So this is the mountain before anything, that's a bad G, before anything's been broken down. And now let's draw the mountain during weathering. So come over to the next space, draw another mountain. Keep it the same size. We're going to change size in a second. But now what I want you doing is I want you drawing stuff falling off the mountain. And draw an arrow. Okay? Because remember, weathering means breaking down. So like wind or rain is breaking down this mountain. And now we have sediment. And now what do you think the mountain looks like after weathering? Now, weathering means breaking down. So after weathering, I want you to draw a really small mountain just to make sure you understand the idea. Draw a small mountain and then draw a big pile. Oh, my pen's going in and out of me. Then I want you to draw a big pile of sediment at the base of that mountain. Because what weathering means is the breaking down of material, okay? And the more it gets broken down, then it piles up over and over and over, okay? We make new mountains, new beaches, new river deltas. Right? So to review what we talked about, weathering is the breaking down of rocks into sediment. Weathering means breaking down. Erosion is the process of moving sediment. Erosion means movement. Deposition is the process of laying down sediment that has been eroded. Deposition means making something new, all right? When plants die, there's more and more weathering and erosion because there's nothing to hold it in place. The plant roots used to hold it in place. Now those are gone. Things are just going to start flying all over the place. Weathering, erosion, and deposition create river deltas and beaches as well as they break down mountains. And we noticed here that our mountain got smaller as it got weathered. All right? I'm going to set you all free on the guided practice now that I'm done with the video. I want you annotating. If you see the word weathering, change the word weathering into breaking down. If you see the word erosion, change the word erosion into moving. If you see the word deposition, change that into laying down. All right? These 3 questions are going to ask you about a couple land forms and see how well you mastered the vocabulary. All right? Great job, y'all. Let's get to it.